there are two car manufacturers that compete of the supremacy of the classic American big pickup truck. Dodge and Ford. Ram 1500, Ford F150. And here in the Lariat package, meaning V8, a lot of good specs, 4-wheel drive system and the 360-degree pilot package with Blue Cruise. So this is the epitome of an American pickup truck. And in this review I am of course not only going to talk about the pickup truck of itself, but also how it fits in Europe, because that's where we are right now. In Europe we get 3 engine configurations. This, the Ford V8 5-liter, and we also got of course the Raptor, the 3.5-liter turbocharged V6 that produces around 450 horsepower. But the engine that I think I would consider is the less powerful, around 400 horsepower, 3.5-liter turbocharged V6. Much more torque than the V8 and little bit more better fuel consumption basically. But this has so much character, and it goes on E85, that's for tax emissions. I'll talk more about that later on. It is the Lariat package with the twist of being a work truck. So, doesn't have fender wideners, it has this more streamlined front. Everything is body colored, really nice. Quite low here, you have this plastic lower lip. And with the off-road package you also get some skid plates underneath to protect the chassis from rocks and stuff like that. The bulge on the Raptor is not found here, but you do have actual air vents from the hood here and some vents on the sides as well. They are real. But if you follow to the side, you have the only way of knowing that this is a 4x4, that is the decals on the side. And that gives you 3.75 gears, rear locking diff, and of course the automatic 4x4 selective program. So depending on which driving mode you're in, I'll talk about them later. I talked previously about Dodge versus Ford, and where one place that Ford is a little bit behind is the suspension. It has regular springs and damper in the front, but in the rear there are leaf springs. In the Dodge Ram 150 you get air suspension or regular springs and dampers if you want to choose that. The Ford F150 you can't do that unless you go for the extreme Raptor package, and that is a whole different type of car. But in the rear there are more neat features. Electrically operated trunk, and here you actually have like a ruler, so you can actually measure if you want to cut stuff or use this as a working table. Step to get up and down, and if I go up here, since this has the off-road package, whoa, almost fall down there, it has the protective bed liner, so it's meant to be used really. And here you have tethering points on the sides, but you also have some real electrical outlets to use some power tools on the rear part here. Really neat feature. This car can tow 3,500 kilos, load a little bit over 600 kilos. Well, that's not that much, but in Europe there are weight restrictions, limitations, depending on which license you have. So this is a quite heavy car from the beginning, which means that you can't load that much unless you get an extended license. So that's something that you need to take into consideration when you buy this type of car in Europe or Sweden. Really solid grab handle here. And first of all, the amount of space that you have inside here. You can see how much space it is here. But the bench of itself is quite short, which means that you see a third of my thigh, lower thigh, is not getting any support. The angle of the bench is quite high. You're sitting on top of things, not in the car. But other than that, I'm sitting with a decent amount of headspace. The material of itself, the softness, the seats feels nice to sit in. Get a really good armrest here. You have an armrest here with 2 cup holders. There are 12 cup holders, if I'm not mistaken, inside this car. 12. Yeah, that's a lot of cup holders. But Bang & Olufsen sound system sounds really decent. A lot of bass, which I like, but maybe not everyone. And this is very warm, very bassy. Not individual climate control, but you do have air vents here, heated seats, and some plugs to charge your phone and even use a computer or charge a computer. However, this is the American outlet, not the European. So you should be mindful of that. And in the driver's seat, there is not as much space as in the rear because you have this absolutely massive middle panel with a gear shift selector that you can fold down, so you can have a working table here. Use your computer, eat food, do your taxes, whatever. Then you push the button to put it up. There's a button to go into manual, so you shift up and down on the side of the gear shift selector. Here we have some manual controls as well for the cruise control, for increasing, decreasing the volume, and going through the digital gauge cluster. The infotainment system, Sync 4, if I'm not mistaken, works very well. Nothing too special, but it does the job really good. You have some buttons up here, manual button to go into 360 degrees system. The camera, I like it a lot actually. And it's there, so you don't have to go through sub-menus to find it. I have hill descent control, so to select the speed when you're going down, the car will do everything by itself. You have Pro Trailer Assist, so when you're reversing, it will help you to set if you have a trailer, you have a boat, whatever, it will help you. And this little thing here, this is the magic that controls the Ford F150, and you twist it to go from normal to trailer to eco to sport to deep snow and sand, rock roll, whatever, and the digital gauge cluster changes automatically. And depending on which driving mode you're in, via the push of your finger, go into whatever setup of the car you want to have. So from 2H to 4H, you can do it yourself as well. I love the controls of the car's features, which I really, really like. And everything is manual. It's easy to locate, it's easy to use. Quite interesting detail is if you're having a carport, they have physical buttons here to press to open the carport up when you're getting home. Nice feature, and this is absolutely massive. There's this much space. So yeah, quite an interesting detail, but it does cover the side quite well. So starting off-road and feeling the suspension work in that, terrain, the quicker you drive, the more stable it feels, but the play in the steering and the lack of feedback is not concerning because it is, it's not a high speed, it's not a Raptor, but I would like some more feedback, a little bit more control, that's for sure. But it swallows the bumps even though it has the leaf springs in the rear. Yeah, it has leaf springs. That's some old technology, and unfortunately you can't opt out any regular coils and springs or air suspension. You can in the Dodge Ram. And here's some unevenness, and well, it handles them fine, but it's definitely quite reactive for the weight of the car. I mean, it would be able to iron the bumps out a little bit better. And now we're driving over some real speed hump. And of course, with the ground clearance of this car, you don't have to worry about, slowing down that much. I need to talk about the fuel consumption. Ford claims 15 liters per 10 kilometer. Well, that's believable, because right now I've averaged about 16, 17. But if you're super careful driving on the highway, you can get it around 10 liters per 100 kilometer. Right now we're driving on, some broken roads, but driving more quickly, the roads that you would expect to drive regularly. And yeah, here as well, quite reactive, quite bumpy, and especially the rear. It feels, it's a rear-mounted transaxle, standard traditional stuff, and you do feel, especially on some tighter corners, that you don't get the feedback, the stability that you get in some other cars, especially the Raptor or a regular car for that matter. But the quietness, the wind noise is almost non-existent, even when you drive more quickly. I was really not expecting that level of, upscale interior feel driving, just quiet. It feels relaxed, and especially on, highway driving, just eats up miles. That's where, the cruise control, Ford's Blue Cruise with the lane assist and the active cruise control to keep the distance, works flawlessly. I can just eat up miles. But when you're in start and stop traffic, that's where the cruise control can flip out sometimes and just feel there's no car in front of me. I will just drive, and I've been having to press really hard panic brake to not crash into the car in front of me. And that was a quite scary experience. This car is fitted with the E85 flex fuel. And why does it have that? Well, in Europe, taxation for these cars is horrible. So it is expensive to own this car, however you look at it. But with the E85, you are reducing the tax cost. And in Europe in general, I would say, it's much more easy to find E85 than, for example, in the US. Having driven the best-selling car in the world, what are my conclusions of the Ford F150 Lariat V8? Well, looking at the exterior, it looks more athletic, a bit thinner, not as bulbous as the Dodge Ram 1500 or 1500. The V8 gives this car so much character, but it feels old. And the new V6 twin turbocharged engine gives it more torque and makes it more usable. E85 in this car with European tax emissions makes this a very nice offer and not as expensive regarding taxes. And if you want something bigger, you want something that screams a bit more than the regular Ranger or the new Amarok, well, the new F150 is definitely a car for you. The rear suspension, leaf springs. A bit jumpy, more reactive on the road, but you can't deny the long cruising capabilities of this car. Those are my final conclusions for the Ford F150. See you in the next video.